On Christmas Eve, billionaire Ethan Blackwood wanted nothing more than to forget the holiday existed. Then a 5-year-old boy tugged his sleeve outside a bakery and asked the question that would haunt him. "Mister, can you share some expired bread? Mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." What he discovered next would change Christmas forever. For both of them. Ethan Blackwood hated Christmas. He hated the lights, the music, the forced cheer. He hated the way everyone pretended to be happy when the world was just as broken as it always was. Most of all, he hated December 24th, the anniversary of the day his wife had looked him in the eye and said she'd never loved him. 3 years. 3 years since Diana had walked out on Christmas Eve, leaving divorce papers under the tree like some twisted gift. She'd taken half his money and all of his ability to trust. Now Christmas was just another reminder of everything he'd lost. His driver had called in sick. His assistant had the night off. So here was Ethan Blackwood, billionaire CEO, walking through the snowy streets of Manhattan on Christmas Eve like some character in a movie he'd never wanted to be in. The city was beautiful, he supposed, if you cared about that sort of thing. Snow fell in lazy spirals, catching the light from 1,000 Christmas decorations. Families hurried past with shopping bags and laughter. Couples held hands and smiled at each other like the world wasn't cold and cruel. Ethan walked faster, his expensive coat pulled tight against the chill, desperate to get back to his empty penthouse where he could drink expensive whiskey and pretend tomorrow was just another day. That's when he felt the tug on his sleeve. He looked down, irritated, expecting a panhandler or a charity collector. Instead, he found a little boy. The child couldn't have been more than 5. He had messy brown hair poking out from under a hat that had seen better days, and brown eyes that were far too large for his thin face. His winter coat was worn at the elbows, his shoes had cardboard visible through the soles, and he was clutching a tattered teddy bear like his life depended on. But it was what he was holding in his other hand that made Ethan's stomach drop. A piece of bread. Old, stale, clearly pulled from a dumpster or a trash bin. "Mister?" The boy's voice was small but determined. "Mister, can you help me? I don't have any cash," Ethan said automatically, the lie sliding out before he could stop it. "I don't want money." The boy held up the bread. "I found this behind the bakery, but it's only 1 piece and Mommy needs it more than me. Do you know where I can find more? Maybe some that's expired? The bakery throws away the old stuff and I thought maybe—" He trailed off, his big eyes filling with hope that made Ethan feel physically ill. "Where's your mother?" Ethan asked, his voice rougher than he intended. "She's at home. She's sick." The boy's lip trembled. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days because she gives all the food to me. But I'm not that hungry, I promise. I just want Mommy to have Christmas dinner. Even if it's just bread." Ethan stared at this child, this impossibly brave child asking a stranger for garbage so his mother could eat. Something cracked in his chest, something he'd thought was permanently frozen. "What's your name?" he heard himself ask. "Noah. Noah Mitchell." The boy stuck out his hand like a tiny businessman. "What's yours?" "Ethan." "Hi, Ethan." Noah smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "You look sad." "Are you sad because it's Christmas?" "I like Christmas. Mommy says it's when miracles happen, even when things are hard." "Your mother sounds wise." "She's the best mom in the whole world." Noah's face fell. "That's why I have to find her food. She works so hard, and then she got sick, and lost her job, and now we don't have money for the medicine or the heat or anything." Ethan looked at the bread in Noah's hand, at the worn coat, at the shoes that couldn't possibly be keeping out the cold. This child was starving, and he was more worried about his mother than himself. When was the last time anyone had cared about Ethan that way? "Noah," Ethan said slowly, "would you take me to your mother?" The boy's eyes went wide. "Why?" "Because I think I might be able to help." with more than just bread. Noah studied him for a long moment with a wisdom that seemed far beyond his years. Then he nodded. Okay, but you have to promise not to make Mommy cry. She cries when she thinks I'm asleep, and I don't like it. I promise. Noah grabbed his hand, his tiny fingers frozen even through Ethan's leather gloves, and started pulling him down the street. Come on, Ethan. It's not far. And maybe you can meet Charlie, too. He's my bear. He's very brave. Ethan let himself be led by a 5-year-old through the snowy streets of Manhattan on Christmas Eve, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt something other than emptiness. He didn't know what he was walking into. Didn't know that this one decision would change everything. All he knew was that a little boy needed help, and for reasons he couldn't explain, Ethan Blackwood couldn't walk away. The apartment building was worse than Ethan had expected. It stood in a part of the city he'd never visited, a crumbling brick structure with a broken front door and hallways that smelled like mold and desperation. The elevator was out of order, had been for months, according to Noah, so they climbed 6 flights of stairs, the child's small hand never leaving Ethan's. This is it. Noah stopped in front of a door with peeling paint and a crooked number 7. Please don't be scared. I know it's not fancy, but Mommy makes it nice inside. He knocked twice, then called out, Mommy! It's me. I brought a friend. The door opened, and Ethan's world tilted on its axis. She was beautiful. Even exhausted, even pale, even clearly unwell, she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Chestnut hair fell in messy waves around a face with delicate features and amber eyes that widened in shock when she saw him. Noah, who? She looked at Ethan, then at their joined hands, then back at her son. Baby, you know you're not supposed to talk to strangers. But, Mommy, he's not a stranger anymore. His name is Ethan, and he's sad because of Christmas, and he wanted to help us. Noah beamed like he'd solved world hunger. Can he come in, please? The woman looked at Ethan with a mixture of suspicion and something else. Pride, maybe. Or embarrassment. I'm sorry, I know what my son told you, but we don't know what my son told you. But we don't need it in 2 days. She flinched like he'd struck her. Her eyes darted to Noah, then back to Ethan, and he watched her straighten her spine despite obviously being weak with hunger. Noah exaggerates. We're fine. Thank you for walking him home, but you're not fine. Ethan kept his voice gentle but firm, and I'm not leaving until I know you've eaten something. I don't accept charity. Then don't call it charity. Call it, he searched for words, call it Christmas spirit, or human decency, or whatever you need to call it so you'll let me help. She stared at him, those amber eyes searching his face for something. He didn't know what she found, but after a long moment she stepped back. Fine. But only because Noah will freeze if we stand in the hallway arguing. The apartment was tiny. Just 2 rooms plus a bathroom that Ethan suspected had water damage issues. But Noah had been right. Despite the worn furniture and bare walls, despite the obvious poverty, someone had tried to make it a home. There were drawings taped to the refrigerator, a small Christmas tree made of green construction paper on the window, and a single string of lights that cast everything in a warm glow. I'm Grace, the woman said, her arms crossed protectively over her chest. Grace Mitchell, and you've already met Noah, Ethan Blackwood. He saw the moment she recognized the name. Her eyes went wide, then narrowed. Blackwood, as in Blackwood Enterprises, as in one of the richest men in New York, dying in men. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. What are you doing in my apartment, Mr. Blackwood? Slumming it for Christmas? Your son asked me for expired bread so you could eat. Grace's face crumpled. She turned away, but not before Ethan saw the tears she was fighting. Noah, baby, go to your room for a minute, okay? Mommy needs to talk to Mr. Blackwood. But, now, please. Noah looked between them, clutching Charlie the bear. Then he walked to Ethan and hugged his leg. Please help Mommy, he whispered. She's the best person in the whole world. She deserves a Christmas miracle. He disappeared into the other room, leaving Ethan alone with a woman who looked like she wanted to simultaneously thank him and throw him out. I don't know what you want, Grace said, her voice shaking, but I'm not going to be some billionaire's charity project. I don't need your pity. I'm not offering pity. Then what are you offering? Dinner Tayao. Ethan pulled out his phone. I'm going to order food. Real food? Dough. Enough for tonight and tomorrow. And you're going to eat it. I can't pay you back. I don't want to be paid back. Then, why? She stepped closer, and he could see the desperation behind her pride. Why would you do this? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Ethan thought about how to answer, thought about his empty penthouse, his meaningless money, his 3 years of hating Christmas. Because your son walked up to a complete stranger in the snow and asked for garbage so you could eat, he said quietly. Because he's 5 years old and he loves you more than anything in the world. Because, he paused. Because it's Christmas Eve, and I haven't had anyone to share it with in a long time. Grace's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them away angrily. I'm not going to sleep with you, she said. If that's what this is about, it's not. Ethan held up his hands. I swear to you, I have no ulterior motives. I just want to buy dinner for a woman and her son who deserve better than what life has given them. She studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, she whispered, okay. An hour later, the tiny apartment smelled like Italian food. Noah was eating pasta like he'd never seen food before, chattering happily about Christmas and Charlie and how he was sure Santa would find them, even though they'd moved 3 times this year. Grace ate more slowly, like she'd forgotten how. She kept looking at Ethan like she was waiting for the catch, waiting for him to reveal what he really wanted. But Ethan didn't want anything. He just sat in a broken chair in a crumbling apartment, watching a little boy be happy, and felt something thaw in his chest that had been frozen for 3 very long years. Ethan learned Grace's story in pieces over the next few hours. Her husband, Daniel, had been a firefighter. 2 years ago, he died in the line of duty, saving 3 children from a burning building. He'd left Grace with a mountain of medical debt from a previous illness, a newborn life insurance policy that barely covered the funeral, and a 3-year-old son who kept asking when Daddy was coming home. She'd worked at a bakery for the past 18 months, building herself back up, providing for Noah as best she could. Then, a week before Christmas, the bakery had closed. No warning. No severance. Just a lock on the door and a note saying they were sorry. I've been applying everywhere, she said, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea Ethan had made. But no one's hiring the week before Christmas, and the unemployment office is closed until the new year, and the landlord wants the rent in 3 days or we're out. How much? It doesn't matter. How much, Grace? She looked away. $1,800, plus the back payments I missed when I was dealing with everything. Total, almost $5,000. To Ethan, $5,000 was nothing. Less than nothing. He spent more than that on a single bottle of wine. But, to Grace, it was an insurmountable wall between her family and the street. Let me pay it. No. Grace. I said no. Her voice was fierce. I appreciate dinner. I do. But I'm not going to owe you thousands of dollars. I'm not going to be in debt to someone I just met. It's not a debt. It's a gift. There's no such thing as a free gift. Everyone wants something. Noah appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. He'd fallen asleep on his tiny bed. Charlie clutched tight, but apparently their voices had woken him. "Mommy? Are you and Ethan fighting?" "No, baby. We're just talking." Noah walked over and climbed into Ethan's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ethan froze, uncertain what to do with his hands, but the boy just snuggled against his chest. "You're warm," Noah mumbled. "And you smell nice, like Daddy used to." Something in Ethan's chest cracked wide open. "Ethan is sad," Noah continued, his eyes already closing again. "That's why I brought him home, because sad people need families on Christmas. Right, Mommy?" Grace's expression softened. She looked at her son curled up against the stranger, and Ethan saw something shift in her eyes. "Yeah, baby," she said quietly. "Sad people need families." Noah was asleep again in minutes, but Ethan didn't move. He sat there, holding this child he'd known for hours, feeling the small heartbeat against his chest, and wondered how he'd gone so long without knowing what he was missing. "You're good with him," Grace said. "He makes it easy. He doesn't trust people easily. Not since Daniel." She paused. "He trusted you immediately. Kids have good instincts, do they?" Grace tilted her head. "Then maybe I should trust his instincts about you." She stood, walking to the window where the paper Christmas tree hung. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in white. "I don't understand you, Ethan Blackwood," she said. "You could be anywhere tonight. You could be at parties with celebrities, or on a yacht somewhere warm, or anywhere other than a falling-apart apartment in the worst part of the city. Those places are lonely. And this isn't?" He looked at Noah, still sleeping against his chest, at Grace silhouetted by Christmas lights, at this tiny, broken apartment that somehow felt more like home than his penthouse ever had. "No," he said, "this isn't lonely at all." Grace turned to look at him. The Christmas lights caught the tears on her cheeks. "I don't know how to accept help," she whispered. "Daniel was the strong one. He took care of everything. When he died, I had to learn to do it all myself. And I've been doing it myself for so long that I don't know how to stop." "You don't have to stop. You just have to let someone help carry the weight sometimes." "Why do you want to carry my weight? You don't even know me." Ethan thought about the question. Thought about Diana leaving, about his empty life, about a little boy asking for garbage bread. "Because my wife left me on Christmas Eve 3 years ago," he said. "Because I've spent every holiday since then alone, convincing myself I didn't need anyone. Because your son walked up to me tonight and showed me more kindness in 5 minutes than anyone has shown me in years." He paused. "And because maybe, just maybe, I need help too." Grace wiped her eyes. Then, slowly, she smiled. "You're not what I expected from a billionaire. You're not what I expected from tonight. What did you expect? To be alone. To drink too much whiskey and wait for Christmas to be over." He looked down at Noah. "This is better." "Yeah," Grace said softly. "It is." They stayed like that for a while, not speaking, just existing in the same space. The snow fell, the lights twinkled, and somewhere in the city, church bells began to ring midnight. "Merry Christmas, Ethan," Grace said. For the first time in 3 years, he meant it when he answered. "Merry Christmas, Grace." Ethan stayed until Noah woke up on Christmas morning. He'd meant to leave. Had told himself a dozen times that he should go, that he'd done enough, that staying would only complicate things. But every time he tried to move, Noah would shift in his sleep, or Grace would smile at him, and he'd find himself unable to walk out the door. So he'd stayed, dozed in the broken armchair with Noah in his arms while Grace slept on the couch. Woken at dawn to find the boy staring at him with those big brown eyes. "You stayed," Noah whispered. "I wasn't sure if you would. I wasn't sure either. I'm glad you did." Noah hugged him tight. "Merry Christmas, Ethan. Merry Christmas, Noah." Grace woke to find them making breakfast together. Or rather, Ethan was attempting to make breakfast while Noah provided very detailed instructions that were absolutely not helpful. "You have to flip the pancake when it bubbles," Noah insisted. "That's what Mommy does. It's not bubbling. It's burning. That's because you made the fire too hot. Charlie says you should turn it down. Charlie is a bear. He doesn't know anything about cooking. Charlie knows everything. He's very smart." Grace watched them from the doorway, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This man, this billionaire, who had every reason to be anywhere else, was burning pancakes in her tiny kitchen while her son bossed him around. When had she started wanting him to stay? Mommy! Noah spotted her. "Ethan is making breakfast, but he's not very good at it. I can see that." Grace walked over, taking the spatula from Ethan's hand. Their fingers brushed, and she felt electricity shoot up her arm. "Why don't you let me take over before you burn down the building? I was doing fine. You were making charcoal." Ethan grinned, and it transformed his face. For the first time, Grace saw past the cold billionaire exterior to the man underneath. A man who was lonely and hurt and trying so hard to connect. "I have to go soon," he said, the smile fading. "I have things to handle. On Christmas, being a CEO doesn't stop for holidays." Noah's face fell. "But you just got here. Can't you stay for pancakes at least?" Ethan looked at Grace. She saw the question in his eyes, the uncertainty, like he wasn't sure if he was still welcome. "Stay," she said. "Please." He stayed. They ate burned pancakes at her tiny table, and Noah talked non-stop about what Santa might bring him. Nothing Grace knew because she hadn't been able to afford presents. And Ethan listened like every word was important. After breakfast, Ethan's phone rang. He stepped into the hallway to answer it, and Grace started cleaning up, trying not to eavesdrop. But she heard enough. His assistant. Something about his ex-wife. Problems with the company. The real world crashing back in. When he came back inside, his face had closed off again. The warm man from breakfast was gone, replaced by the cold CEO she'd read about in magazines. "I have to go," he said. "There's a situation, of course." Grace kept her voice neutral, ignoring the disappointment flooding through her. "Thank you for everything. You didn't have to. I'll be back." She looked up, surprised by the intensity in his voice. "I mean it," he said. "This isn't goodbye. I'll be back tonight, and I'll bring proper presents for Noah, and we'll have a real Christmas. If you'll let me." "Ethan, you don't have to. I want to." He stepped closer, and Grace forgot how to breathe. "I know this is fast. I know you have every reason not to trust me. But something happened last night. Something I can't explain. And I'm not ready for it to end." Noah appeared, Charlie in hand. "Are you leaving? Just for a little while, buddy." Ethan crouched down. "But I'll be back, I promise." "Pinky promise?" Noah held out his tiny finger. Ethan linked his finger with Noah's. "Pinky promise." He stood, looked at Grace one more time, and walked out the door. The apartment felt emptier without him. Grace told herself it was foolish, that she'd known him less than 12 hours, that billionaires didn't fall for broke single mothers no matter what the movies said. But Noah kept running to the window to look for Ethan's car, and Grace kept checking her phone even though she hadn't given him her number, and the hours crawled by like days. 5 o'clock came. Then 6. Then 17. Ethan didn't come back. Noah fell asleep on the couch at 8, still wearing his shoes, still waiting for a promise that hadn't been kept. Grace sat beside him, stroking his hair, fighting back tears. She'd known better. She'd known better than to hope, better than to trust, better than to let herself believe that someone like Ethan Blackwood would keep his word to someone like her. But she'd hoped anyway. And now she was paying for it. At 9 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Grace's heart stopped. She scrambled up, nearly tripping over the coffee table, and threw open the door. Ethan stood in the hallway, looking like he'd been through a war. His suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and he was out of breath like he'd run up all 6 flights of stairs. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm so sorry. My ex-wife showed up, and there was a situation with the company, and I couldn't get away, and I didn't have your number, and—" Grace pulled him inside and kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't thought through. It was pure instinct, pure relief, pure joy that he'd come back. Ethan froze for half a second. Then his arms wrapped around her and he kissed her back with a desperation that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Noah's voice piped up from the couch. "Does this mean Ethan is staying?" Grace looked at Ethan. He looked at her. "Yeah, buddy," Ethan said, his eyes never leaving Grace's face. "I'm staying." The next few weeks were like a dream Grace was afraid to wake from. Ethan became a constant presence in their lives. He showed up every evening after work, bringing dinner, playing with Noah, sitting with Grace long after the boy fell asleep. He paid off her rent despite her protests, found her a job interview at one of his hotels, and never once made her feel like she owed him anything. "You're different now," Maria said during their coffee date in early January. "You're smiling. Actually smiling. I'd forgotten what that looked like on you." "He's good for us," Grace admitted. "He's good for Noah. And for you?" Grace thought about Ethan reading bedtime stories with ridiculous voices, about the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the room, about the kisses that started soft and turned into something more. "Yeah," she said. "For me too." But happiness, as Grace had learned, never came without a price. The tabloids found them in mid-January. Billionaire's secret family. Who is the mystery woman? Grace's face was plastered across every gossip site, her life dissected for public consumption. They found out about Daniel, about her job loss, about her cramped apartment and her struggle to survive, and they were merciless. Gold digger, the comments called her. Social climber. Opportunist. Women who'd never known poverty sneered at her desperation. Men who'd never raised a child alone questioned her motives. The worst part was Diana. Ethan's ex-wife gave an interview to a major magazine, painting herself as the victim. She talked about how lonely her marriage had been, how Ethan had never been emotionally available, how she wasn't surprised he'd fallen for someone so clearly after his money. "This woman is using her child to manipulate him," Diana said in the article. "It's pathetic, really. Ethan deserves better than some desperate charity case." Grace read the article in her new apartment. Ethan had insisted on moving them somewhere safe, somewhere with security, and felt the old shame creeping back. Maybe Diana was right. Maybe Grace was just a charity case. Maybe Ethan had only stayed because he felt sorry for her. Stop. She looked up. Ethan was standing in the doorway, his jaw tight, his eyes blazing. "Whatever you're thinking right now, stop." "How do you know what I'm thinking?" "Because I can see it on your face." He crossed the room, taking the magazine from her hands. "Diana is a liar and a manipulator. Everything she said in that interview was designed to hurt you, to hurt us. She's not wrong about everything." Grace's voice cracked. "You did find me because my son asked you for garbage bread. You did rescue me from poverty. How is that not charity? Because charity is cold. What I feel for you is anything but cold." Ethan cupped her face in his hands. "Grace, I spent 3 years convinced I didn't deserve love. That I was too broken, too cold, too emotionally stunted to ever connect with anyone. Then Noah walked up to me and showed me more warmth in 5 minutes than I'd felt in years. And you," he pressed his forehead to hers, "you let me in. You let me be part of your family. Do you know how rare that is? How precious. Ethan, I love you. The words came out fierce and certain. I love your strength and your pride and your stubborn refusal to accept help. I love how you put Noah before everything. I love the way you look at me like I'm worth something even when I don't believe it myself. I love you too, Grace whispered. But what if that's not enough? What if your world destroys us? Then we build a new world, our world. Ethan pulled back, looking into her eyes. I'll sell the company, walk away from all of it. I don't care about any of it, Grace. The only thing I care about is you and Noah. You can't sell your company. Watch me. Ethan, no. She grabbed his hands. That company is your father's legacy. Your life's work. You can't throw it away. It's not throwing it away. It's choosing something better. He smiled, and it made her heart ache. For the first time in my life, I have something worth more than money. I'm not letting it go. Grace looked at this man who'd walked into her life on Christmas Eve and changed everything. This man who'd been as broken as she was, who'd found healing in her tiny apartment, who loved her son like his own. You don't have to sell anything, she said. We just have to be stronger than the people trying to tear us down. Can you do that? Handle the spotlight, the gossip, the judgment. I survived losing my husband and nearly losing everything. I think I can survive a few mean comments on the internet. Ethan laughed, pulling her into his arms. You're incredible, you know that? So I've been told. From the doorway, a small voice piped up. Are you guys done being mushy? Because Charlie wants to watch a movie. Grace and Ethan broke apart, both laughing. What does Charlie want to watch? Ethan asked. Christmas movies, even though Christmas is over, because Christmas movies are the best. Can't argue with that logic. They spent the evening on the couch, Noah between them, watching holiday movies and eating popcorn. Outside, the world spun on with its gossip and judgment. But inside, surrounded by the people she loved, Grace had never felt more at peace. Somewhere between the second and third movie, Noah fell asleep. He's happy, Ethan said quietly, stroking the boy's hair. I've never seen him so happy. He loves you. I love him too, more than I knew I could love anyone. Ethan looked at Grace. I want to be his father, officially, if you'll let me. Grace's heart stopped. What? Marry me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. Marry me, Grace. Let me be your husband. Let me be Noah's dad. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the family you've given me. Tears streamed down Grace's face. She looked at the ring, at Ethan's hopeful eyes, at Noah sleeping peacefully between them. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They got married on Christmas Eve. Not in a grand cathedral with hundreds of guests. Not with photographers and press and the society wedding everyone expected from a Blackwood. They got married in the lobby of the same hotel where Grace now worked as an events coordinator, surrounded by the staff who had become family and the friends who had stood by them through everything. Noah was the ring bearer. Charlie the bear was the backup ring bearer, just in case. Maria stood as maid of honor, crying before the ceremony even started. Even Victoria Blackwood came, Ethan's estranged mother who'd reached out after seeing her son happy for the first time in years. She sat in the front row with tears in her eyes, watching her son become the man she'd always known. But the moment that would stay with Grace forever happened before the wedding. She was in the bridal suite, adjusting her simple white dress, when Noah appeared in the doorway. Mommy? Can I talk to you? Of course, baby. What's wrong? Noah walked over, his little face serious. I want to tell you something about why I talked to Ethan that night. He wanted to get me food. Yeah, but he bit his lip. Before that, I asked God for help. I prayed, like you taught me, and I asked for a Christmas miracle. And then I saw Ethan. You think God sent Ethan? I think Daddy did. Noah's eyes filled with tears. I know Daddy's in heaven, and I know he wants us to be happy. So I think maybe he found Ethan, who was sad and lonely, and he made Ethan walk by that bakery so I could find him. Grace dropped to her knees, pulling her son into her arms. Oh, baby, I'm not trying to replace Daddy, Noah said quickly. I love Daddy forever. But I love Ethan too. Is that okay? That's more than okay. Grace pulled back, wiping his tears and her own. Your daddy would be so proud of you, Noah, and he would love Ethan for making us happy. You really think so? I know so. Noah smiled, that bright, hopeful smile that had started everything. Good, because I told Ethan he could officially be my dad today, and I wanted to make sure you were okay with it. You told him? He cried. Noah grinned. But happy crying, like you're doing now. Grace laughed, even as more tears fell. Come on, little matchmaker. Let's go get me married. The ceremony was perfect. Grace walked down the aisle with Noah's hand in hers, because there was no one she wanted to give her away more than the son who'd given her everything. Ethan stood at the altar with tears in his eyes, watching them approach. They wrote their own vows. A year ago, Ethan said, his voice rough with emotion, I was sitting on a park bench on Christmas Eve, ready to spend another holiday alone. Then, a little boy asked me to share his mother, and my whole life changed. He looked at Noah, then at Grace. I didn't believe in Christmas miracles before that night. I didn't believe in love at first sight, or fate, or any of the things they write about in stories. But you changed that. Both of you. You taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. And I choose you. Today, tomorrow, and then every day for the rest of my life. Grace took a shaky breath. I was so afraid when I met you, she said. Afraid to accept help. Afraid to let anyone close. Afraid that hoping for happiness would only lead to more pain. But you were patient with me. You were kind when I pushed you away. You loved my son before you loved me, and that's how I knew you were real. She smiled through her tears. I spent 2 years learning to survive alone. Now I get to spend the rest of my life learning to thrive with you. The minister pronounced them husband and wife. Ethan kissed Grace, while Noah cheered and threw flower petals in the air. The room erupted in applause. But the best moment came later at the reception, when Noah climbed onto a chair and demanded everyone's attention. I have to say something, he announced, Charlie the bear tucked under his arm. Last Christmas, me and Mommy didn't have food or presents or anything. But I prayed for a miracle, and I found Ethan. The room went silent. Ethan was sad because he didn't have a family. And we were sad because we lost Daddy. But now we're not sad anymore. Noah beamed at his parents. We found each other. And that's the best Christmas present ever. Grace buried her face in Ethan's shoulder, crying. Ethan held her close, his own eyes wet. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. And in the background, Noah's voice rang out. Charlie says you guys should kiss now. They did. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and white and pure. Church bells rang in the distance, welcoming Christmas. And inside the warm glow of the hotel lobby, a family that had started with a little boy's brave question finally had their happy ending. Don't cry, mister. You can borrow my mom. He had. And now she was his forever. The end.